Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is part of our leadership team series of webinars, and it's the last one in that series. And what we're going to be talking about today is the chapter web pages. One thing that you may or may not know is that every single chapter in BNI has their very own chapter webpage that you can use to promote your chapter or to really just customize and make it your own space. It is part of a BNI Connect, so the nice thing about that is that it will pull information automatically from the system. So a lot of what really traditionally in BNI, what a lot of people have done is, usually the web designer in the chapter, the goodness of their own heart and giver's gain, they go out and they buy a domain name for the chapter and they put a website together, and they realize pretty quickly it's really hard to chase people down for their information and trying to get them to submit their profiles and all that stuff and then upload them to the website and remove people as they leave and all that. It gets really time consuming. So the nice thing about the BNI Connect chapter websites is that all of that management stuff is done for you. So as soon as a new member joins the chapter, they will be immediately listed up on the website. And as soon as they fill out their profile through BNI Connect, it will be automatically updated on the website. So now the only thing you really have to worry about is the creative content, keeping it fresh, putting up pictures, things like that. And that's what I'm going to show you in today's webinar, the very, very basics of how to find your chapter website, what it's doing, where it's located, and really how to go in and edit it as well. Before we get started, just a couple of very quick housekeeping things with today's session. Firstly, this is a live webinar, so if you're here with me today on April 11th, 2017, you are among the lucky ones that get to ask questions. If you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to just ask as we're going along. I'd be happy to answer those questions, and the way to do that is to just type them into the questions panel here in the GoToWebinar software. If you are listening to this webinar in the future, that means that you are listening to one of our recordings, and we do record all of our webinars. We make them available up on our support site as well as in our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. Now, these webinars, we do try to schedule them for about 30 minutes apiece, just to keep them nice and fresh and light and short, and make sure that you guys are all have other jobs and other businesses to get back to and phone calls to return and emails that are piling up. So try to keep these to about 30 minutes worth of content. That said, if you do have questions, please ask as many questions as you want. I will stay on this call until every single question has been answered. So the only silly question is the unasked question. So let's take a look at these chapter websites. So first of all, what are these chapter websites? Where are they? And what can we do with them? So they're located, they're part of your region's website. So it's a chapter webpage on the region's website, and you can get to it if you log into BNI Connect. If you're not sure what your regional website is, there's this regional website button in the upper right-hand corner of BNI Connect, and if you click this, this will take you to your region's website. So my region happens to be Rhode Island. We're here in Rhode Island in southeastern Massachusetts. So our regional website is bniri.com. But again, depending where you are, if you're in Miami, Florida, it's going to be bnimiami.com. If you're in Oklahoma, I'm pretty sure yours is bniok.com. If you're, depending where you are, your region will have your own particular website. But the easiest way to get there is that regional website button. Once there, I can go and I can find all of the chapters here in BNI Connect. I just go to this Find a Chapter button. I can view all the chapters in the region, for example, and see the whole list of them. And let's just go to my chapter here, the BNI Wakefield. This is just the chapter information page. But if I go to Visit the Chapter website, this is our very own page of, what we could do with our page if we want to. Now, our chapter really hasn't done much yet with our chapter page. This is, for the most part, it's out of the box. It's going to show us, it has our Facebook link that we added to it. It does show our closed business. It has our leadership. I can go over to our members page, and we have our members page with everybody's profiles. Here's my profile, for example. All of that information is up here on this chapter website. And again, that's a default out of the box, but I mean, you really can do a lot of stuff with these chapter websites. For example, I know that there's a chapter called BNI Rugby out there. And this is an example I always love to use. They are in the UK, in the United Kingdom, in Warwickshire. So if I go to this rugby chapter in Warwickshire, this is what they've done with their website. So they've made a really fully tons of graphics and texts and everything here. So looking through this chapter, they have, what's BNI, try BNI. Here's a couple of videos. You can register yourself to visit. Some quotes from the members, links to their profiles. I mean, all sorts of stuff up here on this chapter webpage. Right, there's also, of course, all the chapter members' profiles. There's also a gallery where you can share pictures, for example, so pictures of member presentations. And there's also a news feed as well. So that's just one example of some things that you can do here. There's also the another one I like to look at is the BNI Golden Ideas chapter. They're in San Francisco. And again, this is just another example. They went with a 2-column approach, not quite as long of a website as that other one is, but there's still some similar things. They put a chapter map on here. If I click the hello, they got a nice little introduction from their chapter president. They're showing us what professions are open in the chapter. A link to visit the chapter, for example. And of course, they have their chapter members page, their own chapter gallery. So, I mean, all different things that you can do with this site. But the nice thing is that many of the things on the site stay consistent. So your leadership team is going to be automatically pulled. So as your leadership team changes in 6 months or in a year, that will automatically change on the website with their contact information. You don't have to do anything for that. If you're putting in your speaker rotation to BNI Connect, that will appear at the bottom of the page as well. And again, the chapter roster will be automatically updated. And again, automatically. So the question is, how do we get in and make edits and changes and design this site as if it were our own? Well, to do that, you do need to basically have the permission to do so. If you are, usually if you're on the chapter leadership team, the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, or you've been designated as the chapter webmaster in the system, then you'll have access in order to edit these websites. If you are not currently listed as the chapter webmaster, but you'd like to be, please contact your director consultant or your regional office, and they should be able to help you out with that. Once you've been assigned permissions, what you will see is this Tools menu up at the top. And under the Tools menu, you'll see CMS, which stands for Content Management System. And then you'll see Chapter Websites. So Tools, CMS, Chapter Websites. Once you get into the chapter websites, you will see all of the chapter websites that you have access to. Now, for the most part, most people are only going to see the one chapter that they have access to. Now, I'm going to play with my one of my test areas here in Antarctica, and this is our the BNI Brr chapter in Antarctica. So I can see that this is currently the link to the site, antarcticreferrals.com/shiver-region-BNI-Brr. All right, so that's the current link to the site, and if I click on this, it'll open up a new tab and show me the chapter site. So you can see, again, this is a completely out of the box, not even ever touched before website, but it still has a lot of information. It has our, we only have a vice president assigned right now, but our member count, where we meet, what day we meet. It has the upcoming speakers because we've entered those into BNI Connect. It does have our chapter roster here, so I can go and, let's say, look at Alfred E. Newman. we have our, all of this information automatically on the site. If we want to start customizing that, once we're in this chapter list here, what we're going to do is click this edit button. Once we get into the edit button here, we do have our different pages. So we have these tabs along the top. We have the pages tab, which has all of our pages. We have the library tab, which is where we're going to upload content for pictures and things like that. Then we have our site information tab. Down at the bottom here, you'll also see a thing that says preview URL and live URL. So preview URL and live URL. This is one very big distinction with working with a CMS system like this, is that when you're working in the system, when you go in and start making changes, you're going to be making changes on a backup copy of the website, right? And that's called the preview site. So if you're working on that preview site, basically nobody else can see what you're doing. It's not until you decide to publish it that all of those changes will be overwritten. So, and I'll show you that in just a moment, but you'll see you have two sites here, the preview site and the live site. So let's take a look at some of this other stuff here. So this first tab has all of our pages, and you can see that we have the different pages on our website, the home page, the chapter members page, the member details, chapter details, and send message subpages, the gallery, and the news. So let's see what those are. I'm going to open up the website here in another tab, but for example, we have, I'm just going to keep this window over here to the side. Let me make this window a little bit smaller. So we have our home page, right? So this is our home page. We have our chapter members page. Again, this is our chapter members page, right? So it has all the list of chapter members. Now within the chapter members page, we have the member details subpage. So for example, if I go to Alfred E. Newman here, this is the member details subpage. We also have the chapter details subpage. So if I was to click on the name of the chapter, this would take us to our chapter details subpage. Then we have the send message subpage. So let me go back here. If I was to click send message, this would be our send message subpage. We also have gallery and news. So we have our news tab, and you'll notice that we don't have a gallery tab right now. So if I go back here for a second and we look at the details of this, we can see that the gallery page, we have different options for all these pages. We can edit the name of the page. So if I don't want it to be a home page, I want it to be about our chapter, I could change that. Meta tags, it will help with the search engine optimization. You can assign meta tags and keywords and things like that to the page. We have edit content, which is where we go in and make changes. And then these two pages down here have a couple of special features, show and hide. So the gallery page, you'll remember that that wasn't showing, and that's because it's currently hidden. The gallery page is kind of a special page on the site that allows you to upload photo albums to display albums and pictures and things like that about your chapter. By default, because it starts out empty, that page is hidden. But if you want to use it, make sure you click the show button. Are you sure you want to show this page? Yes, we do. So now if I go back to this preview URL, we should now see this gallery page. Of course, it's empty right now, but this is now an active page. Now keep in mind, remember I said that you're working on a background copy. If I was to go to this live page, you'll notice that the gallery page is not yet active. And that's again because any changes that we make, if we want them to be shown on the live site, we do need to publish them. So publishing means you just got to click this publish button. It only takes a couple of seconds. But now if I go to the live page, you'll see that the gallery tab is now there. All right, so let's take a look at some of these other tabs before we go into the actual editing of the site. So there's a couple of tabs here along the top, library, site information. You notice there's a new tab as well called gallery. So the first thing is this library tab. So the library tab, basically if you want to put pictures on your website, then you have to get them up onto our server first. So you have to upload them to BNI Connect in order to be able to display them on your web page. So it's very, very easy to do. All you really need to do is to click on Library on the Images tab here and click the Upload button. I can then browse my computer for any files. So I can take, take this. I'm going to hold down the Control button. I'm going to grab a couple of files here. I think you can grab up to 3 files at a time. So I'm going to grab these 3 files, click Upload, and now you'll see that I have these images in our library. Now once they're in the library, when I go to edit my pages, I will be able to use those pictures. You can also upload documents. If you wanted to have, let's say, a PDF file of your chapter roster or something like that, you could put that up there and have a link to it so people could download it. You can also put Flash objects up there. Honestly, nobody has used Flash in years. I do not recommend putting anything Flash up there, but again, this is a little bit of an older CMS editor, so it is still available. All right, the next tab is the Site Information tab. There's really not much you're going to do on this page, just a couple of very, very quick things. First thing is you can change what's called your chapter folder name. And that's really, that's your kind of vanity URL. That's the, your own site link. Now, again, these are automatically generated websites. So by default, it's going to start out with just creating it based on your region and chapter name. So this was antarcticreferrals.com/shiver-region-bni-/BUR, because it takes your region name and your chapter name and merges it together, and it puts in dashes where all the spaces would have been, or illegal characters. So that's kind of a mouthful though when you're trying to send somebody to your chapter site. So you may want to make that. So in this case, I'd like to send them to, I just want to make this the BNI BUR chapter, so I can send people to antarcticreferrals.com/BUR. Right, and if I update that, again, now it's antarcticreferrals.com/BUR instead of that big, long URL. Of course, I do need to publish those changes, but now I can just go. Our website is antarcticreferrals.com/BUR. All right, so I wouldn't change much else on this site information tab. I mean, it does give you the ability to change the button names in the upper right-hand corner. Again, I don't recommend it from a look and feel standpoint. You can also change the visitor button, or actually it's more of a visitor link. If you have set up something like Google Analytics for your chapter, of course you can use that Google Analytics code here, or really any analytics program that you might use. And then we have the gallery. Now the gallery is very, very similar to the library in that it allows you to upload photos and basically show photos on the website. The difference is that this does it somewhat automatically. It allows you to create kind of photo albums in order to share photo albums up there. So the first thing you do is you add an album, and you give the album a name. And a description. Click Submit, and then you can fill this album with photographs. So it's just as easy as, again, it works exactly the same as the library did before. So I'm going to go to Manage Photos. And I can add a photo. You do need to add these photos one at a time, and the reason for that is that you have to give each one a title. So this one was a convention in Malaysia. Right, so I could upload this, and now that is part of my gallery. And if I go back to my pages, I'm going to go ahead and publish this again. If I go to our website, I can then go and we have our gallery tab. We have our BNI Connect folder. and we have our photo. Right, so this is all now available in the picture gallery. But one thing that you probably want to do is you want to start getting creative. So you want to make some changes to the actual website itself. So we can do that. So let's take a look at how to do that. All right, now to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to use this Edit Content button. Now you can go in and modify really any of these pages that you want to. Probably the most common one is to update that home page here. So I'm going to go ahead and click Edit Content. Now, pay attention. What's going to happen now is it is going to open in a new window. You can see it opened in a new window here. That means if you click that button and nothing happens, you have a pop-up blocker turned on. So if you click the button and nothing happens, turn off your pop-up blocker. Now from here, it's very similar to editing a Word document. You'll notice that we can only update certain parts of the page. This header information up here, for example, we can't change that. That's part of the look and feel of the site, and makes it a part of the regional site. This information over here in the left-hand side, that's going to be pulled automatically from BNI Connect with all the leadership team names and everything like that, your chapter location. The chapter speakers down here, again, that's pulled automatically from BNI Connect, so you don't have to do anything with that. Really, we're going to be working within this window here that allows us to update the content of the page. Now, again, most of this works just like a Word editor, like Microsoft Word or something like that. A lot of it's just, you can type stuff in. All those typical functions that you would have with a word processor. I can highlight stuff. I can make the font bigger or change the font. Let's say I want this to be 21 point font. I want our thank you for closed business here to be in green, so I'm going to change the color to green. I'd like this stuff to be highlighted here. I can change the highlighting. You can do things like bulleted lists and numbered lists, 1, 2, 3. I can put in bullets. Of course, we have the typical stuff, bold. We can make things italic and underline. All that stuff is really the same stuff that you'd find in any Word editor. A couple of unique things that may be that are really different in an HTML editor like this. One of those things is that you do have access to the source code. So if you are a web designer by trade, you can click this source button and actually make edits directly in the source code. You would need this also for doing things like if you were building forms or functions. If you wanted to embed a video, for example, you would need to be able to copy and paste this into the source code. And that's just a toggle switch. You could toggle right back over to the WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get format. Other things you may want to do that are kind of unique here is you might want to add some pictures, right? So let's say I wanted to add a picture right here. Let's say I wanted to add a header maybe to this, right? I wanted to add that BNI Connect header. So I'm going to make some space up here. From there, I'm going to click this picture button to go find the picture. I'm going to browse the server. And this is going to show me all of the photos that I uploaded. So you can see it has those couple of photos that I did, but it also has some stock photography in here as well. A couple of just things that have always been in the library. But let's say I wanted this header up here. I can say, oh, okay, well, that is a little bit too big. Let me go ahead and let's make that a little bit smaller here. There we go. So now we have something a little bit better. Other things that you might want to do besides adding photos is you might want to hyperlink things. So let's say I want somebody, let's say, visit the BNI website, right? And I want BNI website to be a hyperlink to go to BNI.com. I just highlight it, click this link button, and put the URL in, www.bni.com. And now when they click BNI website, that will take them over to www.bni.com. 。 right? So once I'm satisfied with my website and I have it the way I want it to be, I can go ahead and click the Save button. This will give me kind of a preview of what it looks like. If I want to go back and make more changes, like this is still too big, I'm going to click this button. I want this only to be, let's say, 600 pixels wide. That seems like it's going to be a little bit better. Let's save that again. Once I'm satisfied, I can click Close. And if I go check out my website, it's going to be oh, hold on a second. I forgot to publish. Let me go back and publish that. Click that Publish button, and now if I go to my live URL, there we go, my gorgeous new chapter website. How beautiful is that? So that, my friends, is the chapter websites. It's as easy as that. As I said earlier, if you've ever edited a Word document, you have the basic skills needed in order to update your chapter website. What I'd like to do now, we are just about at the bottom of the hour. We have about 3 minutes left, I think. For any of those that do need to go right away, thank you guys so much for staying with me, but I'd like to open this up for any questions. Does anybody have any questions whatsoever? I would love to answer those questions now. While you're thinking of any questions, just a quick reminder, we are recording this webinar. We do make them available on our support site. Janet, I see you click the button to raise your hand. We don't have the ability on this particular webinar to unmute your microphone, but if you could type your question in, I would be happy to read your question aloud, and then I'll be able to answer it for you. All right, again, while you might be typing out or thinking of any questions, just a reminder, this is part of a longer series of webinars. We do have our first member webinar of the month, which is going to be tomorrow. That is part of a 5-part member series. Tomorrow we're going to talk about how to complete your profile, and then on Thursday we're going to talk about the online referral process. You're going to take a couple of days off, and then next Tuesday, we are going to talk about connecting with other members, how to dive deep into the system and use this as a tool to contact other members around the world. On Wednesday, we're going to talk about member tools and reports, and then we're going to close out the series next Thursday with inviting and registering visitors. So Janet says, so the pic you upload into the album will not show in your library. That is correct. The gallery, the picture gallery and the library are two different, I guess, areas of the system. So those pictures don't cross over, unfortunately. I'm sorry. But thank you for the question. Hopefully that helped. All right, Jacob says, can we add pages to our website? At this time, we are limited to just the pages that are here. That said, some people have done some very creative things, such as, repurpose that gallery page in order to make the gallery page to be some other type of page. You can still, play with the headers and the footers and all of that in order to, really almost make it so it is an additional page on your site, but we are limited to those pages right now. But I hope that helps. Mary, thank you, Mary. Mary says, is there a limit to the number of photos that we can put up? And Mary, no, there is no actual limit. At least I've never heard of anybody that approached the limit of how many photos you could put up in the library or in the gallery for that matter. What there is a limitation of is the size of the photos. Not a cumulative size, but each individual photo can only be 5 megabytes in size. So we are limiting it that way, but not as far as the number of photos that you have up there, just the size of the single photo. But great question, thank you. All right, do we have any additional questions? All right. Well, if we don't have any questions, thank you guys so very much for spending some time with me this afternoon. I do hope to see you on a future webinar. Again, a good referral for me is if you found the format of this learning helpful, please do refer me to other people in your chapter. Let them know about these webinars, this webinar series. You can always find the upcoming webinars on your regional website as well. In the meantime, thank you guys so very much, and happy connecting.